Morning, everybody. Welcome to Unity. We're going to start with our community sing-along with the song Up to a Higher Place. Let's move on with Get Ready, My Soul. the sweetest kind of wine. Get ready, my soul.
Thank you. It's beautiful. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Amber.
Thank you, Jan. Welcome, everyone here and those joining us online to Unity Spiritual Center, where we are all about our amazing mission to inspire people to make a positive difference. Transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world. Are you feeling inspired this morning?
Yes.
Good. Me too. I'm very happy to be here. I need a Sunday service today. My name is Amber McKenzie, and I will be your platform assistant this morning. I would like to ask you all to please silence your cell phones, but before you do, make sure to check in online with all of your people through your social media and let them know that you're here and they can also join us online. We want to begin our time together by sharing our opening affirmation. I will say it once and then just ask you to repeat it with me. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the Good. Together, there is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the Good. This is Unity's foundation principle. One presence, one power, one life, living through and as each one of us. This morning, we will hear from Dr. Gary, who will be leading us with his talk, A Tale of Two Struggles, right? Okay. And we are going to be led in today's meditation by Reverend Jane. We are also being blessed musically this morning by Brian Wright and Don Daisley. Thank you. So let's now stand and sing our community song.
Good morning. My name's Linda, and I have the announcements. Annual meeting today at 1 o'clock. And if you're early, enjoy a delicious lunch prepared by the YOUers to support the YOU. And if I know that with the annual meeting today, there's people here that don't normally maybe come this early or this late. So I want to remind everybody that the bookstore has the Advent booklets, and this starts next Wednesday. So be sure and pick one up if you haven't already. They're in the bookstore and they're on the welcome desk. So they're out there for you. AVP workshop, February 28th through March 1st. Calling all peacemakers. There's an 18-hour Alternatives to Violence project basic workshop planned for February 28th through March 1st. The cost is $30. If you're interested in hearing more, please sign up on the sheet on the table next to the welcome desk. Then we have Islands of Sanity with Reverend Jane starting March the 7th at 10 a.m., Saturday, March 7th at 10 a.m. Join Reverend Jane to explore ways to widen our circle of compassion and become an evolutionary in order to help welcome a kinder world into manifestation. And Unleashing the Wisdom of the Bible. Delve into the myths, mysteries, hypocrisies, and truths that reveal themselves when looking at these sacred scriptures as a human response to God. Wednesday, March 4th through April 15th at 6 p.m. in the evening. So anybody who's been looking for a class in the evening, here it is. With Karen Dunmore at 6 o'clock. There'll be a potluck at 5:30, and she will provide soup. So if you want to bring something to go along with the soup, you're welcome. And now I'm going to invite Al to come up and talk about the chaplains.
Good morning, all. I know that you've heard me a couple times before, but I just want to make sure, in case you haven't been around, that you know that our chaplain training is going to be on March 14th. So if you have ever thought that maybe you'd like to deepen your prayer practice, please feel free to come by. Even if you don't think you might want to join, come at least for the morning. And we'll have a talk about why we do what we do, and you get a little practice. We are also going to offer to the congregation at large, right before our training, the Friday night before, a class on affirmative prayer, so that we get this idea of what exactly is affirmative prayer. So please feel free to join me, put it on your calendars, and I will see you there.
Thank you, Al. So, our transformational story update today is going to be led by Elsa Bro. Come on up, Elsa.
Hello. I'm so glad I'm here and not back there skiing and day drinking. Although that was fun at the time, knowing God and the awesomeness of this community is so much better. This is how I got from there 25 years ago, skiing on the 4th of July, to here. A lightning bolt of disbelief stunned me again and again as I asked myself, what's happening to me? Why was my body behaving like this? And how can I make it stop? After having insomnia and tremors for nearly 2 months, unbearable visions of jumping from Spokane bridges, waterfalls, and parking garages landed me in the ER, my first trip to the hospital ever, and my introduction to the adult psych unit. Shortly after moving to Spokane, I had established care with a psychiatrist because I wasn't happy enough. Even though everything about our move demonstrated that it was for us, the stress and strain it had put on my marriage was taking a toll. I was looking for a fix, and this doctor, who I put all of my faith in, began playing God. During one of our visits, he reminded me, I get to choose how to treat you. When I had a series of bad side effects, I followed his instructions to stop the med cold turkey, which sent my brain and nervous system into an out-of-control downward spiral into true hell that lasted 1.5 years. Unfortunately, after I was discharged from the hospital, the medication cocktail prescribed to me kept increasing, but my symptoms did not resolve. Even though I didn't feel that he had my best interests at heart, my mom and my sister insisted I stick with the same doctor, saying that I should be grateful that he was prescribing older and cheaper medications to me. What choice did I have? My functioning on no sleep and sedating medications was abysmal. On a daily basis, I was struck with fear that I'd lose my marriage, my job, or my life. Unity teachings and counseling helped me realize the thinking patterns that brought me to this place of suffering. My whole life, I had reinforced a continuous loop of looking outside myself to determine my worth. And when that didn't work, I took flight to escape the discomfort I felt. It started out when I was a child, constantly trying to fit into a group of girls where someone was always out, and continued into my adolescence, seeking attention from boys to replace the quality time and love I wasn't getting from my workaholic father. When my mom had had enough of me drinking and staying out past curfew, she sent me to live at my dad's, where his ultimatums pushed me to rebel harder. My high school years, wasted, literally and figuratively, is something I still regret. Being able to leave home for college was a blessing. I flourished until my dad found out that I intended to change my major from business, his choice, to English literature, my choice. His disapproval said, "Not good enough, not good enough, not good enough." I thank God for making me athletic, which has allowed me, through life's ups and downs, to tap into my life force, to source endorphins that make everything feel well in my soul again. On the University of Iowa's rowing team, the camaraderie and victories I experienced, and the twice daily practices I endured, planted the seed that I could get through anything if I set my mind to it. The voice said softly, "You are enough, you are enough, you are enough." When I shared that I intended to go to graduate school to become a teacher, my dad's disapproval again said, "Not good enough." When asking for support to problem solve a challenging 8th grader's behavior, my principal's disapproval said, "Not good enough." This mantra followed me through my life until I walked into Unity and heard Dr. Gary speak about his tumultuous childhood, how he'd suffered incredible losses and still found a way to heal and live his truth. The Sunday messages were accessible and meaningful. They spoke to me saying, "You are more than enough." That trip to the ER and the 3-day hospital visit ended up being an expensive wake-up call that humbled and blessed me. In preparation for my stay, my counselor told me to write down my close family and friends' phone numbers, as I wouldn't be allowed to take my phone. Without hesitation, the first person I called was Tara Weir, one of the first people to welcome me to Unity. She organized visits with Amber McKenzie and others, so I'd never be alone for more than a few hours. Sitting with each of them, sometimes with other patients wailing in the background, they held up a light to me while holding space to meditate and pray. After I left the hospital, Dr. Jane also held space for me in her office to teach me how to use heart rate variability and appreciation to spread light and peace throughout my body and mind. I will never forget their non-judgmental acts of love. You're making me cry. I can say with great relief that I'm on the other side of darkness, due to all that Unity and its members have taught me. In addition to you, beloved community, I have joined another community, a group of thousands just like me, who want to create a new life without prescription medications. Together, we practice daily self-care, meditation, and a commitment to healing nutrition. We also encourage each other on the very slow but safe route to tapering the medications that are no longer serve us. I want you to know that I don't judge anyone who takes medications for mental health issues. They can and do have a positive impact on many lives. Relying on medications alone for me was not sustainable. I needed to open my heart to God in order to change the way I think, act, and feel. Committing to unity, making time for stillness, applying the Q process, and participating in spirit groups has changed my life in profound ways. For this, I am forever grateful. Thank you.
All right, let's move into meditation now, singing Standing on Holy Ground.
So let's take those words into our hearts. And Elsa, thank you for sharing your story with us. Let's open our hearts to all of us who have stories to share. As we remember that we're standing on holy ground right here, right now. That the truth is every single one of us is spirit in expression. And we forget that. It gets covered up with daily life, with beliefs that we have that are not the truth of us, that are limiting, painful past. All those things can block it from our awareness, and yet the truth is that God is our source, that within us is a mighty power that can help us rise above whatever we're going through. And so we call on that power now as we turn within and connect to the deeper dimension within us. And so we follow the breath in and out, letting it anchor us in this now moment as we truly inhabit the present. And we bring into our mind's eye someone that we deeply love. And we allow that feeling of love to warm our hearts. And we let it expand and radiate beyond our heart, filling our bodies. Notice what's happening inside your body as every cell is being bathed by this beautiful vibration of love. And we let it expand beyond our bodies as we fill this sacred sanctuary with this coherent harmony of divine love in action. And we allow it to expand and radiate even more beyond the walls of this sacred place. God is our source, our never-ending source for joy and peace compassion, love. Every one of us is an inlet and an outlet of that love. There is no separation. There is only one life, living itself through and as each one of us. And we are joined and connected by our consciousness. And so let's take a breath together and release. As we rest in this knowing that we truly are one with the one, here to be the one to make the difference. We never know when a kind word from us, a word of support, can truly make the difference. But as each one of us answers that call to be divine love in expression, we create a world that works for all beings. And for this, we are so grateful. Let's take a moment now in the silence as we continue to breathe into the heart space and feel that love and let it radiate and expand beyond to bless our world. Thank you, Blessed Spirit, for the truth that sets us free, that we truly are one with the one. There is no separation. And we are here to be an expression of that one life. And for this, we are grateful. And so it is. Amen.
So how many of you were not here last Sunday? Raise your hand. Okay, so last Sunday something happened. Dr. Jane was doing the talk, and she went into channeling. right as she was doing her thing. You know, she's up here, and all of a sudden, well, here, I captured it. There we go. What does it sound? Sound? That's right. We're okay now? Oh, you say I'm on? Yeah, you should do. It should happen now, right? It's not. Sound isn't.
No sound.
I have sound here on the laptop over here, but no sound? No. You're not getting anything on that end? Okay. Hang on. Let me see if I can re-enter the room. Hang on a second. This is worth it. Okay. Here we go. Let's try it again. If it doesn't work, then oh well. All right, here we go. See if we can.
Our brain is like a radio receiver. We use it to tune into the collective memory that is held in our morphogenic field. And here's the good news, bad news. It's through our predominant thinking, our beliefs, our actions, we contribute to that field. And truly, we need to stop peeing in the pool. I know. It wasn't on the page. Yeah, I must have channeled my husband for a minute there.
So that's what you missed last Sunday. You know, Jane and I, when we consider what we're going to be sharing, we imagine every one of you, every single Sunday, are kind of following along. And I know that that's not true, and there's no way possible for it to be true, but that's sort of what goes into our head when we're kind of thinking about things. And so it's like last Sunday I was thinking about what Jane landed on. And then I just, anyway. So now let me start my talk. So I'm wanting us to have a sense of understanding what the effort is. In other words, we're in our life, we know we got to work on our stuff, and we have to kind of deal with what's happening in our world. And depending upon what our situation or issue or where we are in our life, the things that affect us are different for everybody. Some are dealing with health challenges, some are dealing with relational issues, all kinds of stuff that's happening in our life. And so we gather together, and we're coming knowing that each of us is in our own way kind of looking for whatever support we can get to rise above our conditions, our circumstances. And so I'm wanting to have a clarity around what should we be focused on, that no matter what the situation is, when we're dealing with what's happening, this is what we can do that makes the difference, that shifts us into a different experience in our life. Wouldn't you like to have a sense of what that might be that we can kind of grapple with? Well, for me, it's important for me to have identified where it is in my life that I suffer. When am I creating my own suffering in my own life? And it's valuable for us to see when and how we do that to ourselves. Because just think, if we clean up our own self-imposed discomforts, then much of what we struggle with will vanish. I mean, just think about that for a moment. If we just invest a little bit of time and effort in understanding and having some awareness and knowledge about the systems that kind of run us when we're not conscious, we can focus on waking up and understanding what's happening so that we can make systematic progress in developing our own sense of well-being and worth to the point where the things that are happening in the outer don't touch us the same way. And so for me, I suffer whenever I confuse myself with what I have. So think about that for a moment. Whenever you confuse yourself with whatever you have, that's setting ourselves up for suffering. So what are the things that we have that we confuse ourselves with? We confuse ourselves with our body. We confuse ourselves with our story. We confuse ourselves with our things. And whenever what's going on with what we have, or even what we don't have, we're affected by that. Can you see how that's so? Can you see how you, in your own life, when you're so identified, in other words, your identity is living in the context of what you have or don't have, your well-being is affected by what you have or don't have? Can you see that relationship? So, okay, there's one piece that we have to kind of have a practice around to kind of recover from, because we don't want to continually set ourselves up for that kind of discomfort. Always being identified by what's happening in the outer. I mean, wouldn't that seem to be a logical way to kind of improve our life if we're no longer tethered to, or our well-being is affected by, how we're having our life? And then when we look at, or I look at my The other aspect of my discomfort, my suffering, happens when I'm being who I am not. When I'm being my inadequacy. When I'm being my sense of unworthiness. When I'm being less than. When I be that with whatever I'm having will be against me. And so when I have a life that feels and looks against me, I need to know that, know in certain terms, it's a mirror unto who I am not. And if I don't know that, I'm going to decide that my discomfort's caused by what's happening out there, instead of recognizing that what's in here is drawing the mirror into proximity, and my soul welcomes the mirror, even though I don't. Because from time to time, I try to get God to change the way the mirror works. Have you ever prayed to God to get God to change the way your life looks or feels? Because that's what's going on. We're asking the universe not to work this way. But that very mechanism that exposes me by virtue of my emotional system, when I feel discomfort, I'm out of integrity with my own spirit. Because whenever I have someone or something against me or someone the matter with me, I'm living in the disconnect. I'm in my unconscious small self. And if I recognize that that's what's really going on, then my recovery, my reconciliation, my freedom, my liberation comes from reconciling that disconnect within. And not letting the outer distract me from that intention. So for me, as I consider, 95% of our behavior arises from a programmed aspect or a conditioned aspect of ourselves. Then we need to recognize that for the most part we're ill-equipped to know when we're unconscious or even awake. Because we're not looking at how we're co-creating our life. We're not looking at the mechanism of what happens when we have a thought and a feeling, and that leads to an action or a behavior, and that interacts with what's happening in the outer. If we don't see, that's called metacognition, how our own thoughts and feelings are creating our experience, then we won't monitor that and look at what's going on inside of us. So for me, I've had to become clear about the distinction between my unconscious self and my conscious self, my small self and the higher self. And in that effort to be clear so that I'm knowing what's happening and how I am kind of asleep when I don't know the distinction between those two dynamics, self and higher self, or unconscious and being awake, then it's important that I get clear about that, because that's how I'm going to extricate myself out of the patterns that keep me focused on looking outside of myself for my well-being and worth, as well as looking outside of myself for a source of my discomfort. So I have used a way in which I've created this as an effort for me to understand my own small self, my own self system. So if we think about yourself, who you are as a person, and understand that when we even talk about ourselves as a person, we're really talking about our experience in the story of separation, in the phenomenon of separation. So let's keep in mind that while we can look at the circuitry of our self system, we also have to understand that this self system can become unconscious. It can be problematic. So as we consider who we are, we can say we're somebody, someone, something, somewhere, and sometime. And over time, we develop habits. And those habits habituate us to certain patterns of living. But for the most part, these patterns represent an unconscious self, or a small self, or a self that is burdened by self-imposed limitation. And if we don't kind of recognize that for the most part, our life is running us, as opposed to we're intentionally deciding how we're going to be with what's happening. So to find out if you're kind of caught up in this unconscious circuitry, how often do you decide, I'm not going to be with this situation the way I'm feeling about it right now? We rarely do that, but can we not see that unless we exercise that intentionality with respect to how we are experiencing our moment, we are letting our moment inform us as to how to feel, instead of deciding how we're going to be with what's happening in our life and recognizing that that's our job. So as we kind of begin to kind of recognize, okay, if we have a circuitry that's a body-mind dynamic, there's nothing that you can't operate on your beingness or the part of you that takes action because of that, or what happens that gives you a sense of identity through what you begin to possess, and how that makes you feel and what that reinforces in terms of your beliefs and how that tells the story of your life. If we don't understand that those things are not material things but have to do with the body-mind dynamic, then we can kind of see that, well, the circuits above tell me how I'm having my life, and the circuits down below is my proof, my story. And so one of the things I need to know for myself is that I'm unconscious when I'm having my life against me. That's the first principle I need to carry with me as I'm focusing my effort to extricate myself into a place of occupying and inhabiting my higher self. And as I'm able to recognize whenever I feel discomfort, it's mirroring my disconnect, then my recovery has to be about extricating myself from my small self. In other words, I have to step into a larger version of me that is being eclipsed by who I am not, or my identification with what I have or don't have. And if I don't recognize that this is my work, then this work doesn't get done. All right, so the dynamic of landing on some form of spiritual practice has to involve our whole self, the body-mind. Okay, that's why Dr. Joe Dispenza says we have to recondition the body to a new mind, because our body has basically learned all of our habits and then craves for the chemical and emotional cocktails that come from all of those programmed and addictive behaviors that comprise our personal reality, our personal life. So as we look at, okay, how can we get out of this experience of our unconscious self? The body-mind dynamic is part of the challenge. And so Dr. Joe talks about a phenomenon that is important for us to appreciate and value. And he says, if you took your attention off your body, I mean, just imagine for a moment, taking your attention off your body, you're not going to think about your body, off your life, you're not going to think about what's going on in your life, off your identity, you're not going to think about who you are, what your responsibilities are, off the things that you own, the people that you know, the places that you've been. If you take your attention off the concept of time, the only thing that you have left, I mean, you're still alive, it's just that you've brought your awareness outside of the mind-body process, and now you are just consciousness, your awareness, seeking to attach itself to something. And so if we could just be in the practice of not identifying with our conditioned self or the body-mind experience and wonder, is there an experience that transcends my body, my individuality, my sense of separate self? And there is, and that is we have to understand the dynamic, just as we can understand the dynamic of our small self as being a dynamic of being some body, someone, something, somewhere, and some time, we can understand the dynamic of our higher self. And so we can think of our higher self system as being these three dynamics. So in these dynamics, there's no circuitry with respect to the mind-body process. There is just this dimension of energy and information and a dynamic that we can connect to that can free our minds into an awareness of our greater self. And it's not to say that we lose our connection with what's going on in the world, but we bring that connection and the information that we glean from that dimension of ourself into how we're having our life. And so we can just imagine, if we're free from all the trappings of our self-imposed limitations, we can be the one unto our life. We can choose to be anybody, anyone, anything, anywhere, anytime. That we're not conditioned when we lift ourselves out of our programmed state, our small s self, the habits of our unconscious circuitry. We can do that. And when we are able to do that, we're opening ourselves to a great dimension of healing and well-being. And Jane talked last Sunday about really welcoming the discomfort, uncomfortable feelings and what they're connected to. A sense of when you're in the sense of not enough and you want to get more, just recognize that everybody, when they're in their sense of not enough, wants to get more. And when you can connect up knowing that everyone, there's nobody that does not want to get more when they're feeling that sense of not enough. That spaciousness that connects you up to the interbeing, the everybody, the everyone, the everything, the everywhere, and every time dimension of ourself begins to open up a spaciousness. You can bring that spaciousness back down to what you're having in your life. And then there is the dimension of ourself that's the field of infinite possibilities, that we can access that dimension, the unified field, where we can experience the part of us that is nobody, that is no one, and no thing, and nowhere, and no time, our eternal self. And as we recognize this is the dimension of our higher self, that we extricate ourselves from the habits of our conditioned unconscious self system by recognizing that there is this, and enter into the experience of this higher dimension of ourselves. Now, this is not make-believe, this is a reality. This is a dimension that has no external counterpart, so we can't gather evidence or proof. We have to only have experience of it. And so there are ways in which we can bring spiritual practice to cultivate a relationship that grows over time, that brings us into the experience of this energetic field called our higher self. Okay, my talk is entitled A Tale of Two Struggles. So the two struggles are very clearly, our first struggle is to separate from our discomfort. That's the struggle that we'll fail in. And the fact that we have that as our default way of being with whatever's happening in our life reminds us that we're conditioned to struggle. We are conditioned to have our life hard, harder than it is. And so we can free ourselves from that conditioning, but we have to exercise a metacognitive capacity called differentiation. We have to be capable of differentiating our self, our small self, from our higher self. We have to differentiate who we truly are from who we are not. Because when we mistakenly believe that who we are, how we're being with what's happening, that it comes from our shadow side or our sense of disconnect, this is not the truth of us, but it's something that we have. We have to recognize, I have a belief that I'm not enough. I have a belief that I'm inadequate. I have a belief that I'm less than. But that's not the truth of me. Here's my shadow card. I believe these things. There's a part of the grown-up Gary that believes this about himself and has all the evidence and the stories to tell about how I've been a disappointment or whatever. And all of us have those same kind of stories. How many of you have a cue card, shadow card? As you look around, those of you who are new in this ministry, you see that this is a part of the culture of this ministry to do this deeper work. And it's a recognition that whenever I'm being with whatever I'm having out of this dimension of my small self, it has to look and feel against me. And when I react and interact with that, which is the illusion that I've created that's trying to wake me up, I further deepen myself into those unconscious patterns. But when I recognize that there comes from a dimension of me that is all about me being the one. Remember, the one is anybody, anywhere, anybody, anyone, anywhere, anything, anywhere, and any time. When I am on my qualities of being side of myself, I'm coming from that dimension that can be with whatever I'm having out of any of those qualities and use whatever is happening as if it's my abundance. But if I'm on the wrong side of that card, I can't do that. And when we recognize that that's the struggle is to create choice points that get us on the right side of how we're being with what's happening in our life, then it becomes very clear. I can use whatever is happening, whatever is arising up from within me as evidence. Okay, I'm living in my unconscious self system. So I need to do something now in the moment before I even interact. I have to say to this, whatever's happening here, give me 5 minutes. I'll be back. And then I have to get myself right. I have to reconnect myself up and relink my conscious intention and awareness to what is really happening in this moment. This that looks and feels against me is a mirror to that part of me that still believes in those qualities that I'm trying to free myself from. So wherever we have someone or something the matter with us, we need to know that there's the little boy or little girl in us that is yet to be blessed by a consciousness of parenting that only apparently Mary and Joseph possessed. But a consciousness of parenting that we have to bring to that little boy or little girl that abides within us. We have to do that. Nobody else can do that for us. And until we recognize that that's our work, we will try to fix whatever's going on that's wrong out there. So it's just four things to remember. Put this to memory. Gratitude, curiosity, self-compassion, authentic action. If you'll just kind of, regardless of what's happening in your life, regardless of whatever challenge it is, it doesn't matter. These 4 steps will affect a shift that takes you out of your unconscious self-system circuits. So the first I'm going to talk about is gratitude. And we've had much to say about gratitude as being a foundation for really being present to whatever's happening. It gets us lined up, because only in gratitude, in the state of gratitude, a state is when the mind and the body are in alignment, or when the thoughts or feelings are in alignment. Only in the state of gratitude can we be in alignment with the field of infinite possibilities. Because if there's anything that happens that says it has to be this way, the field shuts down. We have to have the entire field present. That means we have to welcome whatever is present in order for us to get into that field. Let's hear what Dr. Joe says about gratitude.
When a person shows up in a doctor's office and they're given the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis or MS, cancer, diabetes, the common emotions they experience is either fear or sadness. They can think positively all they want. They can say, I'm going to overcome this condition. But if they are feeling fear, that thought never makes it past the brainstem into the body, because it's not in alignment with the body's emotional state. You get that person to change their emotional state and get them into a state of gratitude. Why gratitude? We normally give thanks when we get something. Your body is believing it's receiving something, because the emotional signature of gratitude means it's already happened. So when a person is beginning to experience gratitude, they're more prone to accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to that emotional state, and they begin to program their autonomic nervous system.
So the whole idea of gratitude is that in the moment, no matter how a situation looks or feels, you welcome it and you are grateful for it, because it places you in a place of having access to that part of yourself that is living in the disconnect. So when I received 4 years ago the diagnosis of stage 4 metastatic melanoma with over 30 tumors within my body, I welcomed it. I was grateful, because it really meant for me, this was my one thing where I get to be the one. I get to be anybody with this cancer. I can be anyone with this cancer I want to be. I can be anything that I want to be with this cancer. And so the idea of knowing that I'm empowered to choose how I'm going to be with this situation was the first step. And so as we see that giving ourselves the opportunity to open to possibilities that live outside of our structures of knowing is a gift. It's a blessing to be able to know that the universe knows what we don't know. But we can't access that unless we have curiosity about that, unless we can take the next step. How is it possible I'm making this not enough? What's up with that? How is it possible that I'm making my life hard? Why do I do that? And if we don't ask these questions of our own self, we'll never know why it is we do that. You know, I know why I make my life friggin' hard. And I still make my life harder than it needs to be, but I know what's going on about that, and so I'm not judging myself when I'm in my struggle. I'm just recognizing, wow, look at what Gary is still doing. And the moment I realize that, I can't realize that with trying to deal with my discomfort. I have to become curious as to what's arising within me. And I see, oh yes, it's still that part of me that is still stuck in that state. And so I can free myself quickly because I realize it's just the small self. It's just the circuits. It's just my programming. I have no allegiance to my programs because they haven't served the greater good. And then when we recognize that, the bottom line is we wouldn't have anything or anyone against us if there wasn't the little boy or little girl in us. And to know that, you know, when I have to deal with my life being so hard, it has nothing to do with what's going on out there. It has to do with this relationship. I have to have compassion for little Gary and for all the mistakes that Gary has made in his journey to try to know his worth. I mean, what have you done? What has had to happen for you to know your worth? And we're still trying to accept all of it. You feeling me? Yeah. And so then we get to a place where our effort leads us to some kind of external doing. You know, we have to kind of get connected up to the part of us that wants to matter with what's happening. And so instead of coming out of some conditioned, unconscious way of doing and being in our life, we have to have a greater sense of authenticity, authentic being, conscious doing. And that gives rise to an activity that reconditions the whole body-mind. You see, that's the beauty of this work, is because while having the task of reconditioning this body to a new mind, I mean, how do you do that? These are the steps. But remember, the action, it has to land on you doing something. Making amends, taking care of yourself, getting a massage. Whatever it takes for you to demonstrate that you are worthy of being you is what you need to do. All right, so wrapping this up. Everything that's happening in your life, you can be with it. But you really need to recognize that it's either a mirror or a portal. You get to choose how you want to work with what's going on. Either way, it will be fine. But one will be more fun than the other. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Gary. And I want to just acknowledge Elsa. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Very brave, courageous. Okay. Unity stands for peace in the presence of conflict, for love in the presence of hatred, for forgiveness in the presence of injury. Unity honors the many names for God, the many paths to God, for we know that there is only one power, one presence, one life. So whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey of transformation, you are welcome here. We would especially like to welcome anyone who is here for the very first time. If this is your first time here and you feel comfortable raising your hand, our ushers have a gift packet for you. So if you're here for the first time and you feel comfortable, feel free to raise your hand. Anyone? Oh, good, perfect. Great. We're here. Welcome. So on the outside of that packet that you're receiving, there is a form you can fill out to be added to our mailing list for our weekly e-news update and our quarterly newsletter. If you are interested, please fill it in and drop it in the offering bag as it comes around instead of giving a donation today. Also, after the service, you can take that packet to our barista stand and get a free beverage of your choice. You can also take the packet to the bookstore for a copy of today's wonderful talk. If you have any questions or would like a name tag, please visit our information desk and speak to one of our welcome team members. We are glad that you are here, so thank you. We would also like to welcome our online viewers. Thank you for joining us this morning. So now it's time for us to welcome and greet each other with a handshake, a hug, a high five, a namaste, whatever works for you. But before we do that, let's do our welcome song. If you can stand.
You know, all friends here.
Did you guys hear that? Jim would be jealous. Okay, now it is time to celebrate abundance together as we share our community giving. I invite you to hold your offering in your hand, and if you are joining us online, you can use the donate tab that is on our website as we take a moment to sink into our hearts and bring forth a feeling of gratitude and generosity. Let us say together our community giving blessing. I know that my giving blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give and receive. I give thanks for the abundance that is mine to share.
I'm going to share some comfort with everyone today. like an unwanted stranger. There's no danger. I'm here tonight. Little child, be not afraid. The thunder explodes as my thankful rush illuminates your tear-stained face. I'm here tonight, and someday you'll know that nature is so. The same rain that draws you near falls on rivers and land, on forests and sand, makes the beautiful world that you see in the morning. Little child, be not afraid. Those storm clouds mask your beloved moon, and its candlelight beams still keep pleasant dreams. I am here tonight. Little child, be not afraid. The wind makes creatures of our trees, and their branches to hands that not real understand. And I am here tonight, and someday you'll know that nature is so. The same rain that draws you near me falls on rivers and land, on forests and sand, makes the beautiful world that you see in the morning. You know, once even I was a little child. I was afraid, but a gentle someone always came to dry all my tears, drink sweet sleep for fears, and to give a kiss good night. Well, now I am grown, and these years have shown that rain's a part of how life goes. But it's dark and it's late, so I'll hold you and wait till your frightened eyes do close. And I hope that you'll know that nature is so. The same rain that calls you near me falls on rivers and land, on forests and sand, makes the beautiful world that you see in the morning. Everything's fine in the morning. The rain will be gone in the morning, and I'll still be here in the morning.
It's beautiful. Thank you. It's great. Okay, let's take a moment as we give thanks for these gifts and for those who have given them as we send them forth to bless our world. Thank you. And as we are giving thanks for the gifts we are receiving here at Unity Spiritual Center, we want to take time to thank all those in service to our ministry. Today, we are saying a special thank you to our ushers and greeters. Whoop, whoop. Oh, yeah. Shout out. So, if you are currently an usher or greeter, they're already standing, or you have been a greeter or usher in the past, please stand.
Or if you want to be one.
Oh, good one. Wow, so many. Yes, and if you want to be one, that's an option too. So thank you so much for your service. And our chaplains today, Tim and Al. And someone has been Al has been holding the entire service in prayer, which one of our chaplains does every week. So if you have anything that is heavy on your heart or that you would like to celebrate, you can pray with one of our chaplains, and they will hold it in prayer with you. They will both be at the front of the sanctuary right after service. Thank you so much for being of service today. You can also fill in a prayer request form found in the seat pocket in front of you and put it in one of our prayer boxes. We have one at the back of the sanctuary and also one in the foyer. So in the back and then in the foyer. And our prayer team will pray on that for 7 days, and then the prayers will be sent to Silent Unity, where they will be prayed over for 30 days. Also, if you know of someone in the hospital that has requested a visit from one of our chaplains, you can fill in the visitation request form, which is also there in the seat pocket in front of you, and someone will get a hold of you regarding that. Okay, now it's time to welcome our children. And we will sing them in with We Are Singing. Wow, look at all the kids up here. Hi, kids. How are ya? Did you guys have fun in your Sunday school? Oh, that was my kid, by the way. Regardless, we are so very grateful for our young people here at Unity Spiritual Center. So let's take some time to bless our children, youth, and those in service to our youth ministry with our children's blessing. Be the love you are, sing the song you hear, share your joy of life with people far and near. And for ourselves, be the love we are, sing the song we hear, share our joy of life with people far and near. Okay, you guys can go back to whoever you came with. And YOU stay up here. Sorry, forgot to mention that. Yeah, exactly. And then we have Danica is going to be making an announcement. Hi, Ezra.
Oh my goodness, I hope to see some of those young children at kids camp later on this year, which we will talk about more once it gets closer. But today I'm here to let you guys know that we do have a little taco luncheon set up out there for y'all. We do have some vegetarian/vegan options, so be aware of what is gluten/dairy. It's quite obvious, like tortilla, gluten, sour cream, dairy. So just pay attention to your dietary needs and fill yourself up with joy and sustenance. Thank you. All of the proceeds go to our future camps to help our spiritual growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Please stand as you are able and join together for our closing prayer, followed by the peace song. Oh, and actually, he's found a home. He's found a place. The light of God surrounds us.
Starts promptly at 1 o'clock. We'll be talking about reimagining our Sunday service experience.
Yes.